Hi, I'm Marcus with the IndieMusicLab.com. So perhaps you're in your home studio or bedroom studio and you're making indie pop music, but you feel like you're a bit stuck when it comes to the vocals, especially arranging the vocals. Maybe you just keep going back to the same old, just one vocal track from start to finish without layers or variation or any of that. And so if that's you, then you're in luck, because today I'm going to share my top 3 tips for arranging indie pop vocals inside of any DAW. So let's jump right in. Tip number 1 for arranging indie pop vocals is add vocal doubles in the choruses. Now this is pretty straightforward, pretty standard, right? You have a solo vocal for the verses, like this.
She's the prettiest firefly on fire. She is on fire.
Right, so it's just a one vocal down the middle. When the chorus hits, however, it can often be a great idea to add in some vocal doubles. So here, I waited to add them until the back half of the chorus, so that sounds like this. We got these 2 doubles right here. So here's the lead vocal, and then the doubles. There's just the doubles. There's a lot of reverb on them, and they're filtered out as well. They're not as bright, and they add that extra depth to the vocal. Because let's listen to what that sounds like without the doubles. I mean, it still sounds good, but if you add them, just a little bit adds that lift. Back to just the one vocal. Now, as far as like editing these types of vocal doubles, as you can hear, there's a bunch of reverb on them, right? So here is my doubles bus, and a big thing is you often want an EQ on your doubles that looks something like this, where you're filtering off a bunch of the top end. Again, this will depend on the song. Sometimes you do want brighter doubles, but if you want just a warm double to just help give the song a lift where you feel it more than you hear it, if you want that type of thing, then this is often what you want your EQ to look like. Now, if you want more help with EQ in general on your vocals, then I've got my free guide, a visual guide for fixing vocal EQ problems. This ties into that because that'll help you get an understanding of where to make the cuts, where to make the boosts when you're aiming for a particular type of sound. So I'll leave a link in the description for that. And then as you can see here, I'm sending both of these tracks, the double left and the double right, which are 2 different takes, by the way. You're not duplicating the same track. This is 2 different takes, otherwise it'll sound wonky and phasey and all that stuff. It's just a pain. I'm sending it to a return track that I have set up here with a plate reverb. So that's the approach you can take when it comes to your vocal doubles. There's one more thing I'll mention here when it comes to vocal doubles when you're arranging, is for the final chorus, it's almost like it's brick layered in a sense, where you're stacking the bricks on top of one another. Because in the first half of chorus 1, there's no doubles. And then in chorus B of chorus 1, you have those 2 doubles. And then chorus A of chorus 2, you have 1 extra double right. Just gives chorus 2 for that section a little bit of a lift. And then again in chorus B here, we've got the same 2 doubles again. And then for the final chorus at the end, we've got these 2 doubles are there still. And then we've got a harmony vocal that comes in as well. And it's just a monotone. Right? Now, that's obviously not technically a double, but when we're talking about arranging the vocal production and arrangement as a whole, it can be just a fantastic idea to stack things like this, to where you're kind of incrementally, brick by brick, the song has a story-like quality about it, and you're evolving slowly from start to finish with your vocal doubles. So that's tip number 1. Be sure that you at least experiment if you're trying to branch out from just doing a 1-track vocal performance. Then give this a try. Start recording some vocal doubles and then EQ out the top end, maybe add some extra reverb to those doubles, and just let them sit in the back of the mix and help elevate and support the lead vocal. All right, tip number 2 for arranging indie pop vocals is combine the forces of distorted and clean. Now, this is the perfect song to illustrate this because when the bridge comes in, everything filters out, and then there's this distorted vocal that I recorded in here. And then what happens is, as we're coming out of the bridge and we hit the final chorus, that distorted sound is still there and it meets the clean sound, and then they work together, and it's just a beautiful concoction that happens here. So here is what it sounds like. So here's where the distorted vocal comes in. And I'm just slowly filtering that in. I'm automating that filter. And then here, combining that. That's so powerful, isn't it? So the clean vocal hasn't been there since the end of chorus 2, and then you bring in this distorted vocal, and then the clean vocal comes back and it meets the distorted vocal, and they just crush together. And this is just a great move. So when you're going for this type of sound, just record whatever that extra vocal is and just throw some distortion on it, or saturation. Most of this is just coming from the plugin saturation knob by Softtube, right here. And I cranked it, as you can see. Because without it, obviously it cranks the volume as well so you can really hear it, but like, you're getting all that distortion just from this free plugin. So that is tip number 2. If possible, for your song, see if you can find a way to record an extra track, perhaps like this, where that comes in during the bridge, and then you meet that up with the clean track and you combine them and create like call and response things with those 2 tracks together, and they kind of play off each other. And it just sounds so beautiful because one is clean and one is distorted, and there's just that perfect sense of balance between the 2. All right, now for tip number 3, we're gonna stick with this back section of the song here, because the tip is make the final section or the final chorus of your vocal arrangement bigger on at least 2 levels. So as we talked about with the vocal doubles, we're making some incremental changes. We're adding, brick by brick a little bit when it comes to the vocal doubles. There's a vocal double in chorus 2 that isn't in chorus 1, right? So we're making some subtle changes. But often when you get to the biggest chorus of the song, usually the last chorus, you want to make that vocal arrangement bigger on at least 2 levels. And that's exactly what we did here. So how do we get that? Well, the one we already talked about, there's this distorted vocal that is now playing along with the clean vocal, and they're kind of playing off each other. So that's the one thing, right? So that's one thing that I did for this song. I made the last chorus bigger by adding in that distorted vocal. Another thing I did, and I mentioned this earlier as well, is I added in this harmony when we get to the back half of this final chorus. Right? That one. And it's just monotone. Hey, say goodbye, stay a while. It's just doing that. This is all I ask of you now, Jessica. So, my friend, those are my best 3 tips for arranging indie pop vocals. Now, if you want to dive deeper and you want to get some clarity on EQ specifically, then I have the perfect guide for you. It's my visual guide for fixing vocal EQ problems. This will give you 8 of the most common problems we face with vocals, and it gives you the solution visually. You can see exactly what the cuts or boosts look like for the specific problem that you are running into. So it's 100% free. I'll leave a link in the description below, so be sure to grab yourself a copy of that before you head out. Thank you so much for watching, my friend. I'll see you next time.